All right, I think we should be live. Although I haven't done this in a while, so let me know, ooh, okay, I think it's working that I think that's a good sign that it's working. I heard the echo. We're live, okay, can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. Good to see everybody. Ailey, DeGreen Shiz, Jacob, Songo Andy E. A lot of familiar names. I hope everyone's been doing well and having a good time in the Pokemon world. Oh, should probably do it with the lights on. What's up, Nate? What's up, Retro? Kryptonites. Hope everyone is doing well. Power outage. My yeah, at my feet, it's not is like the power switch for these two lights that I have. I haven't used this setup in a super long time, so it's probably not the best spot for it. We'll see if I click it off again. Yeah, so I hope everyone's doing really well. I apologize for not making videos for a long time. Um, uh, but hopefully I'll be down to start making, some again for you guys. Hopefully, I haven't been really active or engaged in the YouTube space, but hopefully there's been enough content and people that you enjoy listening to that it's there's still been good entertainment. um, so I guess I'll start by just talking a little bit about what I've been up to, what's been going on, sort of where I've been for those who don't know. And what else? And then maybe like we could do some Q&A, if people want to ask questions about anything, Pokemon market related, any card market related, I'm always down to answer those. And then, if people want to jump on later, like this is definitely a hangout. You can definitely bring some of the gang the gang on. Just have a good time tonight. And yeah, hopefully I'll get in the groove again. I I haven't done this in a while, so hopefully you guys will be kind to me. Oh my god, gifted 50 Pokenomics memberships. That seems like a ton. Oh my gosh. We're gonna have lots of members. I didn't even know that I had the membership still live. I really do appreciate this sentiment. It's like a very kind um thing to do and encouraging me to be here. So hopefully people can get those and unlock the emotes that everyone likes. Um, I really love talking about Pokemon and hanging out and doing this. So I have missed it. Um, but I've been quite busy. I've actually all right. Where have I been? What have I been doing? So I have gone full time Pokemon since I have last made a video. I think it's been about like 4 or 5 months now. I did go onto John's channel, Radar's channel. I did a podcast on there, and I think I've been on. I think I was on. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've been on. I forget when I went on. Um, but I think Retro. I know I was on your channel, Retro. We had a nice conversation. I'm not sure if that was. It might have been like slightly after I started going full time. We might have talked a little bit about that. Yeah, but for those who don't know, I'm like full time buying and selling Pokemon cards, and I've been working hard on building a business with some employees and a partner that I'm hoping to bring on, all of which I can introduce to you guys at some point if people are interested in that sort of thing. My passion for my channel was never about like uh was never really about like Pokemon business and building businesses. We certainly like talked about that stuff, but it was more about the love of the cards and the love of the market related to the cards and the idea of like how do I build a really cool collection, and that was where like my passion came from. I don't have as much passion, talking about. I know there are a lot. I've seen some recently. I have just been watching, gosh, I forget their name, but there are a couple channels that I don't remember seeing when I was making videos that are really great on just telling people how they're running a business. I don't want to butcher their names. This whole YouTube thing is not. I was never good at this, but um, I want to say it's like Pokekeen and like there are a few others anyway. There's some channels out there that like these are very successful. They have very successful Pokemon businesses, and they're sort of going into and explaining the tips and tricks of the trade. It's certainly my passion to talk about that. I actually love building a business, but more kind of behind the scenes. I like talking more about investing and speculating and collecting. So I definitely we'll see how all of that meshes in. I'm open to taking questions about my business. I'm open to talking about kind of what I'm doing there and how I'm doing it. But I also want to, I want to talk about stuff that's like the most fun and the most fun for everyone here. And, share in our like joy of collecting. I'm actually collecting now more than I have in a long time, and part of that is actually me running this business. I'm able to have some more money, so I'm able to collect a little bit more too. And as many of you guys know, I really love collecting. I have to be careful not to be too addicted to it, right? But I really enjoy that part of the hobby, and so if I make more money, I'm going to collect more because I'd rather have cards than money in many cases. Um, so I've been full time Pokemon. I am hopefully bringing on a partner soon, who is a wonderful guy, who I can if he wants to could come on the show with me sometime, or talk a little bit about that. I don't really know. But my goal is, for a while I've been working on building friendships and community here in Boston, where I'm from, in the Boston area. Doing trade nights, meeting with people, and part of that has been also trying to meet people that I really want to work with, that I trust, that I think are are solid people who care about others, and but are also um, hardworking and maybe ambitious is a good word, ambitious about building something and creating something cool and doing some cool things. I like doing stuff with other people always better because it's really fun to share in the successes with someone else. Building something yourself can feel very isolating, I find, and not be as enjoyable. So, part of why I brought, Dan Ketchum Collectibles, as a Patreon partner to sort of build that with him back in the day. We're still doing that, but back in the day when I was on YouTube and we were building that and trying to grow that. Yeah, so how does my business work? I mean, I can talk a little bit about it, I guess, just to share what I've been doing. So I'm still figuring. I feel like I'm still getting my feet under me in a lot of ways. Am um I don't know, like my business could look very different in 6 months to a year from now. I'm trying out a lot of different things. I'm trying out um kind of wholesaling, which is where I buy very large amounts and then I'm reselling or uh those cards to other resellers at like a fairly reduced price where they can still make money, but I'm able to buy it or source it cheap enough where I can still make money or grade it myself or etc. So I'm trying that and doing quite a bit of that. I love vending and I'm going to do a ton of shows this year. I've been doing multiple shows a month already. It's a blast every time. So I definitely want that to be a part of my business. And then the biggest part of my business is going to be eBay, at least right now, and potentially hiring and partnering with some streamers in the future. Um, Although I'm gonna have to feel really comfortable with them, as people and the types of content they're gonna make and the way that they're gonna treat the audience and if I were to ever go down that route. So that would probably will be on the back burner. But if I meet someone amazing, if you're an amazing streamer out there who's like a great guy and you want to partner with people who have, you know, experience and capital and passion and can do a lot of the back end and the inventory and the organization and the connections, like, I'm always open to talking to new people and meeting new people. I have had people reach out to me wanting to work with me, for me, partnering in some sort of way. That's all exciting. The connections that I made through this YouTube channel for years have been really helpful in building strategic partnerships and building out a business that's really fun and also hopefully profitable. So anyway, so I'm doing the wholesale thing, I'm doing the show thing, and then I'm doing eBay, and really trying to build up an eBay store now, um, where we can provide, where I can if I spend all my time, sort of my focus is really buying and trying to source stuff for as low as I possibly can so that we can sell it. We try to always be low listed if possible, basically on everything, and even go below. So that's the general business model. And yeah, I'm doing it with some friends now. Even hired like one of my best friends growing up, which has been fun. And then some people I've met over the last 2 years. So that's sort of what I've been up to. It's funny that when I went full time Pokemon, I stopped making YouTube content. um, and I still do a little bit of the real estate and a bit of the other things that I was doing, but this is really good. This is really my main focus, at least for now, and has been for 4 or 5 months, and it's been really fun and exciting, and it's also stressful and scary and challenging, uh, one thing I've been repeating to myself, which I say to myself and to other people, is that I would rather be, and this is just for me, I'm not telling how other people should be, but for me, I would rather be a bit anxious, but engaged in life, doing exciting things, challenging myself, than sort of bored and depressed, and I've certainly been both of those things in my life. So I try to be thankful. I prefer, and I think it's more like when it feels better to sort of be alive in that sort of way and be, excited to wake up in the morning, even if there's sort of an anxiety that comes with that and a worry that comes with that, which, at least for me, is just part of the ball game. Means I care, means I'm excited, it means I'm working hard, and life's pretty good right now with all of that. I feel, I know that what I'm doing is insane, and I'm insanely fortunate to be able to do it. It doesn't mean it doesn't come with grinding and anxiety and stress and worry, but it's very it's very enjoyable, and I get to interact with so many people who are having fun. For those who don't know, I used to be a therapist, a social worker, mental health clinician, and I was very passionate about that job. I did that job for 10, 11 years roughly. And but after the pandemic, I just wanted a break from from working with people, on their problems, to Pokemon, which is really like, you know, it at its best, a healthy joy and escape, you know? We all should be working on our problems, and we shouldn't completely ignore them or anything, but, doing something that's just, like, joyous and connects us all, and excites us, those who do like it, like myself and many others here, it's a joy to be able to spend a lot of my time doing it, even as a business. So, and as I said before, I'm like collecting now more than ever. So it for me, it has not killed the collecting spirit, or the, like, I don't, it's not like and maybe, hopefully it never will, but, hopefully it it won't going forward. But, for now, it's continues to be, I feel very lucky, feel very fortunate, and we'll see. Hopefully it continues to last. um, yeah, so appreciate all of you guys hanging out and everyone here. I can take a look to see. Um, yeah, Power says, "Oh, congrats, Jake. I thought you were still doing psych work." Yeah, yeah. So I do want to. I interestingly, so I see a therapist now, and I part of making this job change, I went to a therapist for the first time, ironically, and since I was really since I was a teenager, a young teenager, and he's been helpful. And part of what I've been talking about is sort of what goals I have in my life, and what makes me happy, and trying to focus a little bit more on myself. Being a therapist, I was like very, very focused on trying to help other people, and it was burning out my energy. One thing they say a lot in the field, which for some reason I always cringed, which was probably my own, like, which shows you, like, I was probably really bad at this, was like self-care, 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 self-care. And it was like, but all that being said, like, I want to do something. And, part of what I'm exploring with him and other people is like, I still want to do stuff that's impactful. I want to try to use skills that I have to help others. I just want to figure out how to do that all in a way that, like, improves my life and improves other people's lives, rather than like draining me of my life force to a point where, I really felt towards the end of when I was practicing, like, I felt guilty. I felt like I was not a good therapist anymore because I was too burned out, which is something advice I always give to people about therapists. I think people can be wonderful people, wonderful therapists, skilled therapists, but if the therapist is exhausted and burned out, they're just not going to be able to be, as there for you, as engaged and supportive as you need, particularly if you're going through a thoroughly, difficult crisis. So yeah, so I'm hoping I want to do private practice a little bit again, and maybe even do some more of my, like, community work and working for hospitals and other stuff again. I still have my license, but yeah, haven't been practicing for about a year and a half now. Are you coming back for good? um, I never really, like, left in my head of, like, I'm done. I never made like an I'm done with YouTube video. I just, I think as long as I enjoy it and I feel like I'm not just repeating negative stuff, or I'm having a negative impact, like, I don't know why I wouldn't make occasional videos. I'm definitely not going to be like, I'm not interested in, like, building up this channel and, like, putting a lot of, like, effort into, like, making this part of my business or part of my career or whatever. But I enjoy doing it. Hopefully other people can find it, entertaining, and a place where people can, like, look forward to a video, hang out with people they know, like we did in the old days, bring a little bit of that sort of pandemic spirit back, when we were all, in part, we were all looking for, we all needed more of that social community. I certainly did. John and I Pokemon Radar, and I used to joke that, like, there was a period there where he and I were talking more than either of us were talking with any other person outside of our, spouses, um, during the pandemic. So definitely made a lot of good friends, and really enjoyed a lot of the conversations I had and a lot of those times. Um, let's see. Okay, so I can definitely start, asking some questions. Asking some questions, answering some questions, excuse me. For a lot of people going full time, the collecting goes backseat. How have you balanced the two? I guess I don't know. I mean, the more money I make, the more I can collect, and so my collecting isn't like, I've always also, like, been patient, and I think that I'm always, like, investing also when I'm collecting. And when I say investing, I don't mean that I think it's a good necessarily investment as opposed to the stock market, blah blah blah. But I'm thinking of it also as like I'm getting a pretty good deal for something cool that might hold up in value or even potentially go up in value. And in the meantime, like I really enjoy having it. So it's not just like I'm taking this money and I'm burning it, I have something that I could resell. So that helps me justify making purchases that I wouldn't otherwise. Like there are cards that I've bought that if I didn't think that they would hold some value in the future, I probably would never have bought them because, or at least not for those prices. One, for the obvious reason of, oh, I could get it cheaper later on. But second, just the idea that it's not the thing itself is not worth whatever $1,000, $5,000 to me just in and of itself. But the combination of how much I enjoy collecting it, owning it, looking at it, finding it, hunting for that good price for it, plus the my thinking around like plus the value that I think it might at least hold its value or only lose 70% of its value is like enough for me to like feel very good about buying it and enjoying it. That tends to be the equation of sorts that's like going on inside of me. As far as how can you balance the two? I think that for a lot of people in the beginning, you really need to sell all of your collection or use your collection to fund your business. And that I think for some people, and I used to have this talk, I know with like Colson, who I saw here a little bit earlier, and there were others too, that it was like they're huge collectors and collectors at heart, at heart. I don't want to use that, but like they would love to collect more, right? And the more money they get, the more they're going to be able to collect. But they're maybe at a point in their business, for example, where like it makes more sense to sell everything and put all of that money back into the business. And then, hopefully as they make more money down the line, they'll be able to collect. That's what I do. And so, I was fortunate. I was lucky and fortunate, to be here before the boom in Pokemon, to have, had to have speculated a lot on it and to have bought a lot of it as an investment specifically, as a collector too. But there was a lot of things I just bought lots of copies of as an investment of sorts. And then I was able to sell some of that stuff, over time to start to fund my inventory, so I have inventory sort of on one side of my room and my collection on the other side. And I guess the advice, I would give is just like patience. And I think it makes perfect sense to put all of your money into your business and all of your focus onto your business if like you don't have enough money or enough inventory and you don't have enough money to both collect and run your business very effectively. Now it's a personal decision. Like could I run my business a little more effectively if I sold more of my collection, if I had even more liquidity? Possibly on the margins, but I basically have enough and I really enjoy my collection. So I don't need to like maximize and make every dollar I possibly could. The end goal is not just money, it's right quality of life. Part of the quality of my life, which is crazy, but I really do enjoy it, is collecting, is the hobby part, and so when I make more money, part of how I want to use my money is for collecting, if I have enough of it, obviously before, after living expenses and, traditional investments, real estate, stock market has always been my biggest one personally. So, yeah, I guess just patience. Like if hopefully we're at the beginning of this hobby in many ways, or we have many, many years to sort of like enjoy the hobby. And that people are interested and people can have businesses and people can collect and people can, play and all sorts of things. And there's a lot of like excitement and fun and engagement in it. And if you have that sort of mindset and attitude, like there's no rush at all. Like you could spend the next 5 to 10 years just pouring your money back into your business. And in 5 to 10 years, like you could still be super early in the hobby if the hobby has another 40 years in it or whatever. If we look at, I talk a lot with like, I haven't in a while, but I used to talk a lot with older sort of sports card collectors who had been doing it for like 70 years, 60, 70 years. And it's like people who are 5, 6, 10, 15 years in this are like the old timers right now, because that's just how long it's been around. But like if the hobby hopefully can sustain itself, and there can be some sort of core group that continues through over those years, off and on. Um, there's just like there's so much time. So yeah, just like make the right decision for now. Don't worry about collecting now if it makes more sense to put your money in your business. And if you want to start collecting, start collecting. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I do think that for people who love their cards, selling some of their grails to fund their collection can be painful. But I think once they get started, it becomes much easier because they're like, oh, I can just buy it back. Like I can buy these things back. Now, are you going to have some cards in your collection that are going to be, that specific card because you pulled that card yourself or you were gifted that specific thing from a friend? For sure. And occasionally are those going to be really expensive items that you may, feel like, should I sell this? But I really care about it. I can't really get this specific one back. Like those are more of those dilemmas, but I think that's the minority of situations. Oftentimes things that are gifted or things in that category aren't necessarily the most expensive items. So they're easy to hold on to just for the, emotional connection with them. New partner's initials SB. Nope. So for those who are in the Boston area, I've told some of you who I might be working with, and you've met him. He was actually a former player. Well, he has gotten back into competitive playing right now, but he actually won the world's event. I think about 15 years ago or something now, a long time ago now. And so he's someone who's very knowledgeable, very passionate, very hardworking, very honest. All the things I look for in sort of a partner, very passionate about Pokemon, extremely knowledgeable, and has been around it since he was a kid. And parents used to run events, and he has a lot of knowledge that I don't have, and in specific areas that I don't have. So I'm also always looking for ideally you find people who can fill, also our personalities. Like we have different skill strengths. It's always good to try to partner with someone who brings to the table some of the things that you're, weaker at, and vice versa. Let's see. Are you going to finally share your eBay username so we can support? Yeah. So my eBay is a Pokenomics 1, I think right now. I think Pokenomics was taken. Just buy from me if I have the best price. Don't buy from me. Don't buy from me if just to support me. If you want to support me and you like my content, you can support us on Patreon. I know Dan's put the link. We very much appreciate that. That just feels like the best way, to really support. If you see a card at a good price in my eBay store, go for it. I'm certainly looking to sell as much as I can there. But my goal has never been to use this channel or any of the Pokenomics stuff as much as sort of a branding for my business selling side. So I guess if you like my content and you like what I do on that side, the best way to support me and Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles is just sign up for our Patreon. But absolutely zero pressure to ever do that. Not a big deal. Feel free to just hang out here forever. I apologize. I haven't been making these videos. I do want to start making them again, and never sign up for anything like that if the money makes you uncomfortable or doesn't feel good. Let's see. Is your eBay Pokenomics or stuff? This is because I like to support your store. So again, yeah, if I have good prices, feel free. Definitely will be posting lots of stuff there. And I bought a really cool, actually traded for it, a collection of Worlds cards. So a number of them I put into my collection. Different, people who've been here a while know that I'm a collector and a fan of the World's cards. From a collector perspective, I just enjoy them. So I was able to trade a lot of my inventory for a huge amount of World's cards that I was missing. But there were also lots of duplicates and lots of things I already had that I don't necessarily want to keep, that I'll be listing in my store from that. So if you're interested in World's cards, can definitely, work out a deal. hopefully. I will say that I'm trying to make money though, and I'm trying to run a business. I think that, I certainly do give friend deals and these types of things, but if you want to strategically partner with me, I do a lot of like wholesale where I sell to people at like 75% market, even 70% market sometimes, depending on what they're buying. And like if you're looking for inventory to resell, that's the way to go, to reach out to me as a fellow business rather than, you know, buying stuff directly from me to then resell. I'm sure I'm going to list things too low occasionally and you could make money off of me occasionally, but generally speaking, my active eBay store is going to try to be lowest listed on eBay but priced at a market price or near market price or whatever, slightly under market price. Nice to see you back, Jake. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the positive. Pokemon says, "How come you don't post your eBay store?" So like, yeah. So I don't know. I just kind of like want my. I always felt weird about the like the what's the word that people online use for the like the relationship with like someone online. I don't want people to be spending money on me when they could be spending it somewhere else and getting a better deal because of my personality or something like that. If you do want to support me in that way, I'd much rather you support me on Patreon or support me on a member on the channel. um Now, if you want to buy from me because I have the lowest price or it's tied for the lowest with someone else, that's awesome. I want to run a business that is not dependent on people liking me or wanting to support me as a content creator or anything like that to be very successful. I want to run a business that's very successful, which it has been so far because I'm skilled at this and I'm skilled at buying and I put a ton of work. I work tons and tons of hours doing. I'm very passionate about it. I'm always looking. I'm always making deals and I'm always trying to make connections. Like I want to do it off of that. I don't want to make money off of I don't I feel like that's where you get into that weird, and I know you can't, we've had this conversation endlessly on this channel. I know you can't like I can't control what people do. People are going to do what they're going to do, whether I benefit from that or not. But I am happier in general in life when I feel like I'm proud of the service or the thing that I'm providing. And when people pay me for it, I feel really good about that because I know I've provided them something really good and I provided, some value or whatever versus the sort of like begging for money, pushing people who maybe want access to you or and that's why they give you money. I don't like that stuff. It makes me very uncomfortable. I'd rather just not have that money, to be honest, than deal with the discomfort. Anyway, end of long rant. All that being said, I very much appreciate the sentiment from everyone. Um, I'm glad that you guys like me to some degree or appreciate me to some degree and I'm similar, Pokebarn, in the sense that like I do buy above market at times, ironically, right, from friends of mine from other sorts of things, but I do it because I feel very financially comfortable and I can afford to do it. So I just want to make sure that, if you're going to do something like that, not you specifically, but just anyone, like, I want you to get the best deal you possibly can. And often that's, many times that might not be with me, and that's totally fine. Okay. End of rant. Thanks, Jan. I think, yeah, one thing I used to get, like, people, instead of thinking that, oh, maybe Jake's actually a good guy who cares about people, he actually doesn't have cards and he's making up things and he doesn't have inventory and he's not doing the things that he's doing because he's not public with it. And really, it was because I didn't want to take advantage of my platform and I didn't want to manipulate the market. And I didn't want people seeing exactly what I was doing for competitive reasons as well. All the things I actually said. So listen, I'm full time now. the information's public, it's out there. I was pushed also by my partner and by people I'm working with to, let's do it. Let's, use your name. I want to say I am not Pokenomics though. Pokenomics is going to be the business. So everyone, me and everyone who I'm going to partner with and work with, like we work for Pokenomics. We're with Pokenomics. I'm Jake. Dan is a partner of Pokenomics on the Patreon, for example, an equal partner there. Appreciate that. Yeah. It's like and part of it's a little bit of that. I don't know. I really, particularly when I was an early social worker, I was naive about wanting to do a lot. And anyway, oh, for sure. Like my big thing on therapy is that your therapist doesn't have the answers to life or anything like that. A therapist is just really good at helping you explore things and being supportive and hopefully providing some sort of insight, as a kind of person who cares about you and can sit back and, has some knowledge and experience of and has seen a lot of human beings and so has hopefully some expertise there. But therapists are I have my own, I have my own childhood and adolescent and adult disappointments and my, et cetera, that it's super helpful to work with like a good therapist on. What's your inventory breakdown like, Jake? You were mostly high end slabs. Showing what your primary selling these days. So interestingly, like I've never been mostly high end slabs in my collecting in anything. I just I guess I just showed more of those. So like I had complete binder sets of like every set up to X and Y. A lot of that I've decided to sell and decided to use that as that. A lot of that I decided to use as some of my like initial raw inventory to help boost that up and to help just get some stuff that sells really well. I try to do so mostly at shows. I like to be as much raw across all eras as possible. And my ideal thing, like if I have 3 tables, let's say at a Collecticon, like my ideal is going to be like 4, maybe I have 4 showcases. 2 showcases are filled with slabs. 2 showcases are filled with all raw sort of like higher dollar cards. And then I have like 8 to 10 binders filled with like $5 to $40 cards. And that stuff moves great. I like having some of everything because I like when people can come over to my table and like pretty much everyone can find something. Of course, there's lots of people who are looking for like a very specific card. It's like, oh, do you have like this versus series, like, Espeon? Oh no, I only have the other one, whatever. There are people, and I love people like that, by the way. Those are some of my favorite people who come by and they're so excited. They're looking for one specific card. They spend 20 minutes looking through everything. And then when they find it, like that's super satisfying for both of us, as a collector. I enjoy it. I get the high off of it myself. Part of why I love vending is it keeps you engaged in collecting. And part of what I really like where the hobby's moving again is like less investors, more collectors at these types of things. So I'm having a lot more interactions with people who are enjoying the cards and buying the cards. They're interested in getting a good deal and they hope everyone hopes the value of these go up or sustain themselves, particularly on expensive things. It's not about that. It's just that like the first question is not like, am I going to make money on this? What should be my main focus? Like it's and that's just more, for me, that's just more enjoyable. And to be honest with you, it makes me trust from a market sort of it makes me trust the market a lot more. Those who have followed my channel a long time, I've talked a lot about how, investors selling to investors, speculators selling to speculators, businesses selling to businesses is a falling knife. That what sustains prices in the long run is people who actually want to buy these cards and keep them for a long period of time. And as more people do that, more of them go off the market permanently or for a year or years. and they're not constantly cycled on the market at lower and lower prices laddering down. Now, during boom periods, investors selling to investors can cause the price to go up if everyone is very bullish, right? So you also tend to have, it's usually collectors during it. Collectors usually don't cause the huge increase or the huge fall. It's the sort of fear greed cycle that causes those huge movements. Collectors cause a sort of natural healthy stability. They're buying stuff that they appreciate at values that they value it at that price, and so they can afford it and they can hold it because they enjoy it, and they're not waiting to then flip that or make more money. That's a much healthier market in terms of a stable market where people can have businesses that flourish and that do well and that provide good services. And although people are not get rich quick, in those types of environments, it's very enjoy it. Like, it's just way better all around. I think it's way better for everyone, honestly. That's always how I felt. I mean, the boom was so stressful, and it was awful. Like, in many ways, it was awful. Like, and I had so many depressing conversations with people who lost so much money, and then people who made so much money and then were advising other people to like buy all this stuff, and then they lost it. Like, it was like wherever, if you were lucky and you were fortunate early, you made a ton of money. If you were unlucky with the same sort of attitude and mindset, you lost it. It's just, that's unpleasant. And there's a lot of negativity and drama that comes with that. There's a lot of uh yeah, it's unfortunate. I am not going to be in Collecticon for LA, but I am. My partner is going to be there with the table, and he'll be there for people coming to Collecticon. You can meet him. He'll be there at a lot of the shows. We are going to be in. I always forget what the first one is. Is it Dallas or Houston? I can't remember. I think it's Dallas, right? I will be in Dallas, whatever the first one is. I'm also going to be in Houston, whatever the third one is. Me personally, but we'll be represented. Pokenomics will be represented at the first three. Hey Jake, can you share your thoughts on MetaZoo? I know you're enjoying it. This is like the topic right now, right, on YouTube, because it's fascinating, and there are so many feelings about MetaZoo throughout its run, and it's very interesting, understandably, for people. There's a lot of mystery, in what exactly happened, what's going to happen, intrigue. Like, it's exciting, and this is what we all love. I've watched some of Nick, who I like, and I've always liked Nick's Strength and Fury, and Argos, who I've always liked also. I've watched some of their content recently after not honestly having watched them in a long time, because I'm very interested to hear if they have any scoops and inside knowledge and insights. I did have a relationship to some degree with MetaZoo very early on, and talked to Mike fairly regularly for a while. But I haven't. But me personally, I haven't been involved, other than Dan and I talking. Obviously, Dan was a partner. I haven't been involved. I never invested or speculated in any significant way. I've always enjoyed it. I like cards. I like TCG. I don't think it's like God's gift to man. I also don't think it's like complete trash. Like, it's funny. I showed it to my mom, and my mom was like, my mom liked Pokemon a lot better and felt that the art style. It was just interesting hearing someone who wasn't like tainted by the and she's an artist, by the way. Part of why I asked her. Both my parents are painters, professionally early on, and then hobby later in life for my dad. So I was interested in sort of like her critiques of this stuff. Like, what do you think as an artist when you see these different things? And she was like, they just don't have, like, she really liked the Pokemon art, and she really liked the early WotC art into the E series, into the modern. Like, she thought all of the art, was like, so much of it was really cool. including so many modern cards and common uncommons, and just like the amazing variety of art styles and talent. And and she felt like MetaZoo. She didn't dislike MetaZoo, but she didn't have the same appreciation. That's just one person's opinion, but I did find it interesting hearing an artist's opinion who wasn't jaded, by the cynical, or, whatever we want to use, by the everyone's super loud opinion about how like the art is the worst thing ever, or it's like exactly like Pokemon, it's total nostalgia, you know, um, the echo chamber that exists on the online. So yeah, so my feeling on MetaZoo, I always enjoy it. I still enjoy it. I still open it up once in a while. I have some booster boxes. I was fortunate enough to buy them mostly at like 40-50 prices. So, I've only lost half my money on some, and others, I don't know, I have native and things like that. Yeah, but I never bought any of this stuff as like an investment. It's to open eventually and to sort of enjoy. Now, I'm not against making money. So there's a part of me that always hopes, oh, maybe this game will take off, and me getting these booster boxes at these lower amounts during down periods where people are super negative, like that is the type of investment that I tend to look for. My issue with MetaZoo is just that it was never like an established IP. There have always been concerns. I'm not going to get into like the drama. I don't really know in the management, and that's not like Mike specifically or this person specifically. I don't really know, but there's always been some concerns, seeming like some disorganization from the outside. A lot of that could just be like people talking though that don't really know, and they're just like, games fail a lot. Most games fail. One thing that Squeaks, um, talked about when he was, saying, was I think, shocked, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but surprised, and let's just say felt that the prices for MetaZoo were very ridiculous, and thought that the game most likely would fail, these types of things. Squeeze a very experienced guy in games. He's seen lots of games come and go, et cetera, and understood some of the challenges. I think that people look for scandal and look for, and there might be here, like, did people do ridiculously awful things, and will those come out and be confirmed? Like, it's possible. I mean, people do. I mean, I had my own concerns, which I won't share in my own dealings, and but whose fault is that? It's just it's sort of hard to know. I also think like it's hard to be in the public eye, as someone who has been publicly criticized by other people, who, gets shamed by people online and told that I'm, whatever negative, thing they want to say. It sucks. And so as like a public person, it I I don't want to jump on some unfair bandwagon of hating and wishing for people's failure, and it's so awful. Really, it's so awful. And like now the people who like lost a bunch of money on this and were made promises, who are like super, like, who are angry because they didn't get specific things, and or who put a lot of work into it, like, totally get that. And I think people who are like frustrated and venting because they just love the game and they're so frustrated that it was potentially mismanaged or was mismanaged, whatever, I get it. And it sucks, and it's a bummer. And it really, like, I like the game. I always wanted to succeed. Why would anyone not want something to succeed that people enjoyed? It was clearly a net positive for people. Now I do get that, like, and I was out there saying, don't like when booster boxes were $500,000, I mean, I was calling it, this is obviously a bubble. Like, this is insane. Like, this game has no, like, is nothing. It came out of literally nowhere. Yes, it has Mothman and these characters that people know, but they don't own those. Any new card game could take those. And knowing a little bit of the history of card games, it was like, this is insane that this is happening, but it's also kind of amazing and cool and enjoyable that people are so passionate. It's just that when a game has so many investors and speculators and people trying to make money, and if that way outweighs the collectors and the fan base and the people who are really enjoying it, and then you throw in potential mismanagement, and you throw in, a lot of like negativity from people who like have no stake in it but just want to crap on it and want it to fail. It's not a good it's a tough recipe. And you know, I told Mike that a long time ago that listen, like it's amazing like how great this is doing early on, but like it's would be almost impossible for this not to like go very hard and negative the other way at some point. And you know, it's like, but companies can, we have no idea what the company profit loss or why they're really going out of business, or unless new information has come out. There are all sorts of theories that may or may not be accurate, but um, games don't have to be Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic's level of success to be able to sustain themselves and for sets to continue to be made. So there's this weird sort of like it would have been great if MetaZoo could have like scaled down successfully and being a just like cool game for a while, and then maybe it starts to build. Like if I was managing that company or I was involved in that company, that would have been my perspective. Would have been like, our products are way like these prices don't make any sense. Like our game isn't that good. Our products are not that good. Like let's be completely honest. Like people have not been engaging in this stuff for 20 to 30 years. And that's not a shame on us as MetaZoo. That's just that stonkers and speculators and flippers and all this type of thing are just looking for things to put to the moon. That's not their fault. It's not MetaZoo's fault. I wonder if MetaZoo got a little high on their own sort of on that, didn't expect or understand the sort of downturn, and maybe they were a little bit too ambitious. Maybe they took some risks they shouldn't have. These are all, you know, speculations. I have no idea. They may have managed things like really, really well, and just like super bad luck might have happened. Supply chain issues. Maybe they partnered with someone who just like stabbed him in the back and did something really awful, and you know, everyone else is great. Again, when you're talking though about these people, like try to be kind and reasonable and put yourself in their shoes. It This is something that they probably all, like a lot of these people who led the company, worked extremely hard on, cared a lot about, most likely had lots of good intentions for, and it's a bummer, you know. Now that doesn't mean that like I get that these people have done things that feel shady, and people who have more knowledge of MetaZoo, like they really don't like certain people and their personalities. There are people in Pokemon I really don't like, and I don't like their personalities, right? Like I'm not telling people not to have those feelings, but I guess it's just sort of like, try to be, what I would say or advise people is try to be as kind and empathetic as possible. Put yourself in these people's positions. It's to publicly fail is very, it hurts, I'm sure, and is a struggle. Now, hopefully the game will be bought. Hopefully, you know, maybe it is a good investment or speculation right now because people are fire selling, and then the game will be bought and they're gonna get it back under good man. You know, who knows? The reason I never invested in MetaZoo is because the hype just outweighed the like, and the prices were just way too high for a brand new game that did not have multiple generations and video games and all. Like it, it now once prices got to $30, $40, I wasn't investing, but then it was like fun to buy and collect. Like that felt, you know, a game like Force of Will that's been going for a really long time, that like no one's like people aren't like investing, I don't think, widely in those things, but like there's a player base, like, you know, they keep making sets, selling sets, they're functioning, you know. Anyway, who knows? It's a fascinating situation. Maybe Mike or, you know, other leaders of the company will, you know, reach out to someone and come on their channel and you know, at some point maybe with, you know, Argos or Nick or, you know, people from the MetaZoo, you know, community, content creating community. I like, I think both of those guys are, you know, great content creators, guys, very interesting, you know, to hear their takes. And, you know, I'd certainly tune into something like that, and would hope, you know, it's great when we all have answers. And there's a lot of people who just really cared about the game, and like they put a lot of money and like time and energy into it, and it just sucks. I feel, you know, I feel bad for those people, you know, and if those people are super mad at the management, like I get it. I totally understand that, because it's like, we had this really cool thing and you guys screwed it up or you guys didn't guide it, well enough. So, let's see. Um, Lots of questions here. Sorry, as always, me, guys. I'm always going to be way behind. Um, Collector Art House says, given the addictive personality of many in the hobby, how do you detect and control justifying versus rationalizing? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if people who are hobbyists or collectors necessarily have more of an addictive personality. I think that like people can become like addicted to all sorts of things. People can become addicted to like certainly collecting physical things or hoarding in extreme cases is a word, right? That's like has a clinical definition. Um, but people can become addicted to like experiences, drugs, alcohol, like all sorts of things. So I wouldn't say that like we necessarily have more of an addictive like on I don't know. It's an interesting we might because I think people who like to open a lot of packs on that side of the hobby and people who like the dopamine hit of buying like really expensive cards, they're likely gonna be maybe on average have more of an addictive personality. What really addictive personality means is just that you seek and search for that dopamine hit, and your brain, um, it can. Yeah, I won't give a whole lesson on the way that addiction affects people's brains, but there is a the simplest way to think about it is that people who become addicts, they have an experience that where they get that rush, that feeling, and then they seek that experience over and over again, and they struggle to get that experience in other areas, so they seek that, and that can be increased by other struggles and other pain that they're trying to avoid, et cetera, et cetera. But okay, so to get to your question though, how do you detect and control justifying versus rationalizing? Justifying versus rationalizing. I don't know. That'd be like a very personal thing. It's like a judgment call, right? We don't really know ourselves, so I think that your mood and your general intuition is probably where I would start. Like, how do you feel about the hobby? How do you feel about your buying? Are you concerned? And kind of go from there. Um, I think most things and most people like don't have I think probably a lot of people are overly worried and concerned. And if you're feeling that way, I made a video on like addiction, just kind of recognizing some patterns in yourself. I talked about my addiction and recognizing patterns in myself, and then trying to just like, have a little bit better control. But life is I would rather be passionate about stuff and engaged in stuff and really want stuff and get a dopamine release and be excited about stuff than not have any of that. And so I think one of the challenges is how do you have that in your life without getting addicted to things so that it turns negative, because then you're constantly seeking and needing that, and when you're not getting it from whatever you're doing, you're disappointed, and then you do more and more sort of risky things to get that sort of rush, etc. Any thoughts on the rumors of uncut sheets being cut and the cards graded? I haven't heard them. Be interested. I'm pretty out of the loop these days, Pokebarn. Most people here probably are way more in the loop with these types of things than I am at the moment. But I'd be interested to hear what you think or what other people think in the chat for sure. That's also just like generally not my area. I always like go to Rusty when I have questions. I bought a collection recently that I went to Rusty. I don't view myself as super knowledgeable when it comes to certainly uncut sheets or what to look for or sealed product, particularly. So I tend to to go to people who've had more experience, and of course they get things wrong too, and there's a lot of unknowns, but generally I try to go to who I view as sort of the who have seen the most and are just good people. Will tell you the truth. refreshing to hear about the collecting side. Tired of all the flipping and money talk. Yeah, I mean, like, I enjoy the flipping and money talk, but not when it's like ego debates about like who's the smartest and who's the best, and or it's a or it's like a uh or it feels like no one gives a crap about the cards or like no one has passion or joy for the collecting. Like, so and I've gotten caught up in the ego and the drama of being a YouTuber and needing and trying to be right about things so that I can get more subscribers and followers and Patreon. Like don't get me wrong, like it pulls everyone in. It's something, it's something that's natural to be pulled in, but as much as I can, I'm going to try to hold this channel and myself going forward to trying to have fun. And try to never get too far away from fun. I feel like everyone I know who sells their collection always regrets it. That's interesting. Yeah. And then you said, but your 90% of cards you can just be rebuy. Yeah. Yeah. I think that in the long run, and I think it's fun. It's also more enjoyable for me to buy things when I can afford them. Like one thing I used to talk a lot about on my channel was like affording your collection. And what I always meant by that is like, if cards are so expensive that they're causing you stress in your life because it's like that money should probably be going somewhere else, like that's not the most enjoyable way to collect in my view. Now I totally get that that's unavoidable. I own and do things and that are outside of my comfort range. I don't take my own advice there, but I try to. Not let the dopamine hit of buying really expensive, hard to find things and the thrill of being able to add things to my collection make me spend outside my means or where I'm at. I try instead to like, maybe I can use that to like motivate me to build my business more so that I can then afford those, etc. While I'm always doing more practical things. And of course, like trying to, take vacations once in a while. My girlfriend and I just went, for her birthday, I took her dog sledding up in Maine, and it was really cool. Really like expensive and awesome, but like that type of thing, like really really great way to spend your money. On sharing a great experience like that. Showing your partner that you care about them. Etc. Doing something special, something unusual. Pokebar. Definitely will only buy if it's the best price. So don't worry or overthink. Yeah, you know me. You know me. I'm always worried. And I'm always in danger of overthinking. Worlds cards, you say? I need the two. No, I don't have any. I didn't get any of the 04 in this deal. He's alive. Yep. Parasocial. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for earlier. All right, maybe I should go like more like I'm way behind. I see I'm 30 minutes behind in the chat. Maybe I'll try to run a little bit towards closer to the bottom. Hubstyle gifted 5 Pokenomics memberships. Appreciate that. Have I ever heard of the author David? I have not. No, sorry. Do you have a healthy supply of baby shinies in your inventory? We'll be adding more with Pelion Fades. I have my complete 10 sets. I have a binder set. The rest I have mostly sold, sadly. I do have a pile that I am gonna probably grade at some point. Probably looking at maybe like a $12 if it gets down to 12, maybe 10 to 12, somewhere in there, but I'm kind of holding off right now. Going back to fueling your inventory with your collection, how do you decide what you were okay with selling? I mean, generally speaking, like if I feel like I can get it back like fairly easy, which is like pretty much almost everything, like my attitude about stuff is that like I don't need any of these cards, but they're really fun to collect. So if I never get this one card, who cares? Like the joy of collecting is the hunting and the looking and the setting new goals and changing up. I guess I'm not like I know that some collectors have more of a, and I don't mean this clinically, but like more a little bit more of like an OCD type personality of like a completionist, and I want to do one thing at a time, and I think that's awesome. Like I think people should collect in the way that satisfies them. You know, I've talked to some big collectors, you know, who tend to collect more. They're more like, I'm going to get all of these and I'm not going to actually buy that one yet, even though it's at a good price, because I'm not until I get all, you know. And I think for them, it's a lot harder personality wise to like sell one card because, well, now that's incomplete and I need to rebuy it immediately. Like, so I can't, you know, I don't know. But for me, it's just, um, I, you know, if I want the card again, I can just look for it again, buy it again, hopefully buy it at a cheaper price. But, you know, a lot of the WotC, you know, middle era, you know, the low pop, the harder to get cards, like those cards have started going up in price and have been harder to find, you know, generally speaking. So, you know, they're not things that I'm looking to dump ever, or, you know, or sell quickly. It's more of a, you know, if I get really good offers and I think I can get it then cheaper again in an auction, you know, et cetera, et cetera. That's where I tend to move those types of things. But Jason, I see about why have you been gone? Oh, why have I been gone? I think I was just like very burnt out for a while on YouTube. I was tired of having arguments and debates that I felt were stupid and a waste of my time and your time listening. And I don't know, just felt very stale. And I was tired of talking about like the money and not the joy of the cards and the people I was engaging with and some of the personalities I wasn't particularly enjoying. And I just was getting way more enjoyment in like building my business and building like friendships and more community like up in the Boston area where I'm from with like people in person. So I've just been like throwing my energy into that. But I have missed this. I also think like um this is a good way for me to meet new people. There are going to be new people who have no idea who I am and who are going to watch this stream and, you know, and maybe I'll meet them at a convention or somewhere, or they'll be in the Boston area and they'll be super cool. And it's like another, you know, way to connect. And I hopefully you know, it's fun to be here. It feels nice, nostalgic for some of you. I know you've told me to like hear me ramble on and on because you listened to me during the pandemic, you know, and I'm honored by that. That's very, very kind and is wild to me. Um, I have a show coming up. Do you normally price higher to have wiggle room for hagglers or price low and no wiggle thoughts? Mm, a lot of cards I just price like right at TCG player. You know, if a card is like 12.60, I'll often price it at like 13, for example. When you start getting to higher dollar, like alt arts or cards that I'm selling through constantly that are a little bit harder to replace constantly, there are cards that I have trouble replacing at like below 70% or at 70% or 75%. That even at 80%, some of those cards can be pretty hard to buy and find and replace. Those are the types of cards that I might ask for $5 over or $10 over, which both gives me a little room to wiggle, you know, a little wiggle room to negotiate on it, um, but also puts me in a position where you know, I'm not, if I sell it, I'm not in a hurry. I really don't care that much if I sell that or not. You know, that item will sell, and I may not be able to replace it for the next show. So I'm just more patient with that. I sell lower pretty much on everything than TCG Player at shows. So when I'm actually selling, like I price things like at TCG Player and then I'm selling them for lower than TCG Player for sure. Because I'm able to buy massive collections and huge and sort, and I spend all my time doing that, or not all, but tons of my time doing it. That's my part of the business and job is the buying and the negotiating and the dealing and you know, my partner you know, deals with a lot of the inventory management logistics. It suits our personalities as well. um but yeah, so my goal is to buy really well so that I can sell, you know, at really good prices. People leave my place really happy. I can even sell to like resellers at prices that they can then make money on if they want to. That's generally my approach if possible. But there are going to be some items that I'm not going to price that way. There are going to be some items that I are harder to get or harder to replace. Maybe I care about it more for some reason, like a higher end sort of card. I think it's cool in my showcase. I like looking at it. I'm probably not going to get another. I recently had I had like some trophy cards, lower value, like people call them trophy cards. Like what's it called? I'm blanking on the name now. Grand Party. Like I had like a Grand Party. I just don't get a lot of raw Grand Parties, and it was just kind of cool to have in like the case. So I'm just not in a super rush to sell it. And it did end up selling for like $50 over market. But that's an example of like where I market whatever market value is, right? Some sort of last sold combination of last solds. um, I think too, to add a little bit more depth in that, when you're pricing something market or above market, below market or where you're pricing it also has a lot to do with like what the comps are, like which comps do you decide to use? How do you price things? How do you talk about things in the show? I try to use like one source for most things and then price it all off of that rather than jumping back and forth between multiple pricing sources. That's usually the most efficient and easiest way. I also buy the same way. 2014, 2019 was, yes, wonderful times to collect. I loved those were my favorite, like as a collector, by far my favorite times in the hobby. Because it was just calm and fun and it was hard to find things and chase. Now like listen, I mean, as far as like all the other areas of the hobby, it's way better now. But um I appreciate all the well wishes in the chat and all the names. How is Rafi doing? What has he been up to? I think Rafi's quite good. Rafi has a very large family. He has a lot of kids already. He unlike me who's still waiting to have my first kid and going very slow with all of that. He has, what does he have now? 4 or 5 kids? Oh, maybe even now 5, 4. Gosh. He's got a lot of kids. He has a very high pressure, I would say, intense, stressful job as a CEO of a very large company. He's a very impressive guy. As far as his credentials and what he does, even though he obviously is a big nerd, like us, and you wouldn't know it because he's not a jerk about it. But I'll shout his praises. He's a very accomplished, very bright guy. So he's very, very busy, and this is very much a passion of his. Cards are always going to be a passion of his, and I know he has some videos that he wants to put up, but his time is just he is so busy. Truthfully, way busier than I am. Yep, I'm excited to see all you guys at Collector Cons. I'll also be in Orlando, Kai. I'm hoping to come to Chicago. So many people that I really like from this hobby, like Ponga, Mertz, Lord Pokesmoke, and others are from Chicago, and so it was really fun seeing you guys there in Collecticon. It was really a nice treat, or not Collecticon, in the National Card Show last year. We had some deep dish pizza. It was really fun. So I really want to make Chicago. It's gonna be a little hard for me. It's during the Jewish holidays this year, unfortunately, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to swing it, but it's going to be probably one of the highlights of the year. Just Chicago's great. It's a great place to be. And also just a lot of people that I really like. And I just think are really, really fun people to hang out with are in Chicago. And I'm sure going to host and show people, a good time who decide to go. It's not about the destination, but the homies we scammed along the way. Oh God, that's always a fear. I still remember, like I made some sales to one in particular. I made a sale to someone who was like in the Patreon and Discord, and I sold them this card. It was a rare sort of like Worlds promo-y card. And for those who deal a lot in Worlds promos, like auctions are not the way to go for those. So I sold him the card for like $3,000, and it was auctioned like 2 weeks later, and it went for 1,500. And I feel bad about that to this day. Obviously, I don't feel bad enough to like refund him his money. So I as always I say like I'm not a saint, but you know, and those things happen. The reverse has happened to me where I bought something and then it went for way lower auction too on a niche item, you know, as well. It happens. You know, hopefully the person doesn't feel, you know, too shitty, but I remember that's like the only time that that's ever happened to me where I sold someone something and then it was just like, wow, like rough. You know, big scam. Big scammer. Jake's a big scammer, right? Crack a score box to celebrate. So you missed you need to come to some of these collecticons one day. Come over to the States because uh John and I opened a the limited which one was it? The Lost Episodes one. And we did pull a god pack, which was pretty fun. We just cracked those packs like the degens that we are. When a Rita passes, will his cards go up in price? I mean, a lot of that would depend on sort of the hobby and you know, you have to look at the demand side, not just the supply side. But theoretically, you know, there would be no more supply, and in the short run, theoretically, demand might go up because maybe there's a lot of celebrations of Arita. People are talking more about Arita. Generally speaking, when someone passes away who's famous and loved, their autographs, their memorabilia, their anything that's connected to them, even just their art, um, you know, is likely to go up in value. All other things being even in the equation. That is just announced it's buying Disney and the Pokemon Company. It's a pretty sweet turn. So I think I'm just gonna jump to the bottom of the chat. If you have asked a question already that I didn't get to, I apologize. I know there's a ton of questions here. I really appreciate everyone hanging out with me. If anybody wants to ask me a question, I think I'm probably going to go for another 15 minutes or so. I will be back. It will not be this long until I make another video, I promise. But if anyone does have any like burning questions about anything, Radar, when is the next pod being posted? I see John in the chat. How we doing? Let me see. I noticed he didn't mention Walrus for Chicago. Walrus as well. Although Walrus didn't join us for dinner. But I did get to meet, I think I'm trying to remember. I feel like we met first at Orlando, right? Walrus. Walrus and I had like the worst tables. We were like we for whatever reason, we were positioned in a place where like no one was walking through. But like the other booths and like everyone else, and also Greeny was in the same boat. Like there were about 3 or 4 of us. Sometimes at these collector cons, you just get these tables that for some reason no traffic, like the traffic just doesn't naturally go through there. And I would say that it was us and our inventory or whatever, but like literally the next show I did the most I've ever done in set, you know. So it's these collecticons are hard to predict. Um, Jake coughed on me once and doesn't mention me. I'm sorry, Walrus. That's the danger of naming people, right? Someone asked him, what does he think of friends who alter high-end cards to send to CGC who doesn't realize and sell to unsuspected buyers unaltered? Of his friends, who's my friend who does that? I would be shocked if any of my friends is doing that, but you can let me know. I have no idea what you're talking about. let me know who you're talking about. You have to understand that I am not in the YouTube space anymore, so I have not been watching any YouTube videos. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the latest drama is, so you have to, like, ask me specific things and not assume that I know things that might seem obvious. Um, let's see. What's your favorite Pokemon? My favorite Pokemon, I think, is Dragonite. If I had to name one, I usually go with Dragonite, but I also like Alakazam and Gyarados a lot. Big Mewtwo fan. Definitely Gen 1. All my favorite Pokemon are from Gen 1. But I do like Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5 Pokemon. Just what can I say? They were the most time I spent with Pokemon was playing the video games. And so the Gen and the Gen 1 games in particular. And so those are just gonna be my favorites, the ones I feel the most connected to forever, I assume. Can we get a collection update or PSA return video soon? Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can definitely once I get these world cards in. So I think I'm going to be posting more on Instagram going forward too, and using that a bit more just to kind of post. Just feels like a more natural place to post collection things. I always kind of felt like I wanted to be more private with that, but I don't know. Maybe I just kind of get over it and just kind of start sharing and stop overthinking and worrying about things. Um, I'm in Chicago too with the Hellband. I know. I'm sorry, Mr. Walrus. I've seen Mr. Walrus more at Collecticons now. We've hung out a few times, and it's always wonderful. It's always a pleasure. And I hear a lot about you now from Nick. You're definitely come up in conversation. Um, Now that you've gone full time, how does it affect the museum dream? When are you getting into Dallas? So, if anything, it would speed up the museum for sure. As far as hopefully making money from this and then being able to do something like that. I have talked to people who are like older who have been involved in Pokemon in a variety of ways who are interested in starting a museum of some sort. So there's a number of people interested in it. Um Yeah, something that I definitely wanna do, although there's gonna be a fight for where it is. I'm gonna want it on the East Coast, and most of the people I talk to are on the West Coast, so we'll see. Great to see you streaming again, always a good time, appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping in. Question, $50,000 to invest in 2024, 20-year-old, what we buying? 20-year-old? Okay, if I'm trying to, like, maximize my money, I'm buying vintage Disney cards, and I'm trying to source ungraded, really good condition stuff, and I'm grading it myself. And then I'm selling some of it immediately to start just, like, getting some price history and getting some traction on them, but I'm keeping, like, as much of it as I can behind the scenes. I may not have tried to do some of that, although I haven't been able to find enough that it's really anything significant. But I think within the card world, those seem to be the most surprisingly just cheap items to me. Um, when you have like Pop 1, Pop 2, like 1930s, like first ever card or second or third ever card of like Donald Duck in his like previous form, and they're extremely hard. Like it just doesn't make sense, even when you compare it to cards like, I know this was a joke question, but you know me, I answer everything seriously. Cards like your Superman, 1935 gum ink, or 1940 gum ink, excuse me, the Disney 1935 gum ink. Like when you compare it to other things that are way more expensive just because they're established, even if I don't think that they're way better cards. Hearts of War, um, 1966 Batman, 1966 Marvel, your first appearances of these things, like for some reason, even though like Disney is these cards are way rare and way older and way harder to find in good condition, and I would argue the characters are more iconic. Yeah. Anyway, but you all know how these markets are crazy, and these markets thrive on attention and thrive on sort of markets being built. So if I were to speculate sort of long term, probably there. Within Pokemon, where would I go? Um hmm. I would say like PSA 10 WotC and middle and like original Nintendo EX era and and like E series end of. But the problem is like only if they're really clean PSA 10s. I would be a little concerned that like PSA will not be the main company forever or will not be the main company in 20 years or it's going to shift around and then you've paid such a premium for these items and it's not the gold standard anymore. But I think the price point and some of that stuff, given how popular, how iconic these cards are, um, I see the value. But I wouldn't invest in any of this stuff, too seriously. But I think as far as collecting and then hoping, etc. Um, yeah, I've noticed several YouTubers started card business shortly afterwards. They slowed videos way down, even when YouTube is such a big thing for them. Is the profit that staggering? Oh well, I mean the profit was never great on YouTube for sure. I mean the Patreon is we make some decent money there. Certainly nothing crazy, nothing that you could ever live on, but some amount that it's not just like $20 for 6 hours of your time like YouTube is. Um, um, I know for myself too, Isaiah, it's that my passion was like collecting and talking to other collectors and even when I'm talking about like investing or speculating, it's coming from that position of like holding on to stuff and what should we buy now? Like what makes the most sense to collect now that will do the best financially over time or will at least hold as much value as possible. And now that I'm a business, and I started my channel for this reason in the beginning, Isaiah, like I think businesses, you have to be careful with businesses because they have incentive for the Pokemon market to continue to do well, and they're actively selling you stuff that they're probably telling you to invest in. And that was always my issue with businesses. And so I think in some part, when people start businesses, they're also like honest people and they stop wanting to they go from sort of like, hey, I'm selling this stuff now and I shouldn't be advising people on what to buy or whatever, or being as involved in that conversation, in that way. I'm sure also a big part of it is how busy they are. But almost nobody makes money on YouTube that it's worth their time, given what they could probably make, reselling, building a business some other way outside of Leonhardt and PokeRev, and certainly if you use your platform, if you're selling a lot through your platform, or you're using your platform to sell other places, there lots of people have channels that I think are very successful in that sort of sense. But anyway, 50K worth of Van Gogh Pikachu's to the moon, baby. Yeah, but don't do it after the reprint. Do it before the reprint, right before. Wait until late 2025 with your 50K, then dump into index funds for S&P, NASDAQ, also buy BOTS ETF. The person is in the chat who did that. Okay. You can tell me. I literally have no idea. Drama on his first day back. Yeah, people are always like people people like who don't know, like it's so interesting like how people assume what I'm like and who I am. And it's very interesting to get the wide range of takes from people who are like pedestal me in a way that I don't deserve, of like, oh my gosh, he's so kind and caring and he does all, and he's been so right and he's so smart and he's, all the way to like, he's a scammer, he lies, he's wrong about everything, he's doesn't care about anyone else. It's like, you do realize that like I'm a person and every person on YouTube is a person and they're probably a lot like you. trying to be good, trying to take care of people, and my take on this stuff is always that most people want to be really generous and honest and loyal and all these types of things. And if they're not, it's because they've made mistakes or bad things have happened to them or they've gotten into a point in their life. And then when people are and including myself, anyone, when we're desperate, we're way more likely to, well, I'll screw over anyone because I need to like pay my bills and I need money, or I'm so miserable and everyone hates me so much and life is so terrible and I have nothing to look forward to. So I need to like just hate others, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, I totally empathize with that. Like, and, I was a therapist for many years. Like, my hope would be like, you can get this is not directed at the person who's asking this question. This is in general. Um, I would hope you would get some support and some help and just like surround yourself with people or be able to find people who are more helpful to you, make you feel more loved, and then maybe you'll have more of that generosity and energy to give to others, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, I work very hard not to do things that I think are shitty, but I also have but my ambition and my drive to succeed in business. One thing I talk a lot about with my therapist about is that line of like, well, should I tell them that this card sold for that much, or should I let them pay more than they might if I told them? Like, those are the types of dilemmas. I certainly haven't. I will never trim or cheat or lie, or I'm not worried. That type of stuff is so left field to me. And anyone who's engaged in that sort of stuff, like, what are you doing? There is so much money to be made by just being like hardworking. Like, it's just those people, and often those people are probably going to be unsuccessful anyway because they're lazy and they're going to they would rather creating a business that actually provides value to people and makes people happy. I know it's like the guru thing to say online, but like putting that aside, the cringe of whatever that aside, and people who are saying that who are actually not doing that and they're just bullshitting, like, if you're actually trying to build a business, like, you'll feel better and your customers will be happy and you won't constantly be worried about going out of business if you're dependent, if you are depending on some sort of fraud or some sort of cheating or whatever. What a horrible life to live, beyond just the morality of stealing from others, just for themselves. Like, who wants to live like that? I don't know. That's how I tend to think about that sort of stuff. Um, Ben Kelly says, I'm looking to invest in a Sword and Shield booster box. Besides evolving skies, what set should I buy? I don't know. Okay, if I were looking to invest or speculate on a Sword and Shield booster box, like, which one do I think is the most undervalued based on the price? Gosh. I'd have to look at the prices. I'm not super up on it. I thought like Lost Origin and Fusion Strike were like pretty good products, and Brilliant Stars I always thought was a pretty good product and somewhat undervalued maybe. I think like Crown Zenith, like oh wait, that's you said Sword and Shield. I don't know. I probably would go. I like Japanese a little bit better because you can buy directly from Japan and already get in under market for things at times, particularly for new sets. You're talking about Sword and Shields. Probably wouldn't buy any of that. I think it's already probably all too overpriced, for what I would feel comfortable doing. But for me, I modern Japanese sets that are really good, you can get them if you can buy quite a bit and you have a good source from Japan, which again takes some experience in trying to track down and some effort, but it's doable even for someone who's like starting at zero and has no connections to find that. You can buy the product for like $10 to $20 under what they're immediately selling for in the US. And then, particularly if it's a good product, maybe you sell half of it, make some money, you keep half of it, hoping that it will do well like previous ones have done. Obviously, like specialty sets in Japanese, if you look across the board, like they all went up so much in value. I think that they're all ridiculously priced. I would never purchase any of those. But if I'm able to get one at $50 and then with the off chance that it goes to 200 or 300 or 500 or whatever craziness people are willing to buy these things for. I totally don't get it. I don't understand the market for that. But that's good. That makes sense. I think buying like a bunch of Fusion Strike or a bunch of um any of those sets, like your money would do you would be way better off probably by just like using that money to flip and resell collections and buying singles than you would be like now if you don't want to do any of that, you just want to hold the product and you like the product. But the thing about it is, Ben, and why like everyone's advice is like take everyone's advice with a humongous grain of salt online. Like these people do not know what they're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Like nobody knows how much of this stuff has been printed. And some of these sets may have been printed way more than others. And the thing about how the price works on these is like the price can stay stagnant for years, and then all of a sudden it could shoot up because some influencer, because suddenly like a card from that set gets really hot, or people like go back and really love that now. Like there's all sorts of Sun and Moon cards, like full arts and stuff from X and Y too, like waifus and stuff that had no interest, nobody cared about. Um, were very cheap, outside of maybe like Lily from Ultra Prism, like had some value, but we're talking like $20, but like, and then they became popular later on. And then all of a sudden there was like a gold rush on the sealed but those things are like, in my opinion, like fairly impossible to predict. I mean, you can certainly you can make slightly better decisions by saying like, well, there's no popular Pokemon in the set. There are no cards that anyone likes in the set, and there are no cards that I think people will like in the future. But if you generally with investing, you want to think differently than other people. So you want to find an advantage over others. So like when I was talking about those Disney cards. So in Pokemon, I would want to buy the set that I think people are most undervaluing. Okay? Because if I think they're most undervaluing that set, that means that I think that set is too cheap right now, right? I'm not going with the herd. I'm trying to go against the herd with the theory, and this is what investing is all about, that eventually people are going to come around and realize that this was underrated all the time, and now they're going to pay me more for it. That's what value investing is. It is trying to look at stuff and say, hey, this shouldn't be worth this. It should be worth quite a bit more because A, B, C, and D. The problem with investing in modern booster boxes like that is there's way too many unknowns. Starting like whenever we think about investing, we want to think about the supply side and the demand side, right? The supply side, we don't know. Very hard. Dan and I, to plug my Patreon here again, Dan and I have talked about this. We've tried to come up with a list of like what we think roughly, supply things are. Dan's put in some work there. I would take it all super with a grain of salt though, to be honest. Like I know Dan would say the same thing. I think it's valuable. I think it's great, but I also think like, it's very hard to know. We really don't know how much has been opened up. We really don't know how many investors are sitting on this. This is what I've always worried about sealed product. I think there's a lot of people holding sealed product who the box is like $500 or $1,000, maybe not so much the sword and shield, like these lower sword and shield stuffs, but they would never buy that for $500 or $1,000 unless they felt that it was going to hold at $500 to $1,000. Like that the investment sort of speculating money side has gotten away psychologically from the collector value of the item. Now, that doesn't mean that's true for everyone. There can be people out there who's like, no, I love that box. I look at it every day. I get a ton of joy from it. And it's not just the value of it. It's that I really like the set. I really care about the set. I really enjoy the idea that maybe I could open it one day. I'm not talking like there are always going to be lots of people like that, right? But I think in general, there are PSA cards right now, for example, that I think more people are buying them purely because they love that freaking card, and there aren't a lot of them, and they're just happy to get in their collection. They're not super worried about the money. For a few years now, I've been more worried about the psychological relationship that people have with sealed and sort of the irrationality of it, in my view. Now, how to think about that, I don't know. I don't know how to, and again, it doesn't mean that the bubble on that stuff will pop ever. I mean, and then it technically wouldn't have been a bubble. But you know, markets can stay sort of irrational or can stay hype driven or investor driven for an extremely long time. There are lots of examples of that, from history. Examples of like where you have, but then when they finally burst, it's brutal. Um, so anyway, those are my thoughts. I don't know what's going to go up. I can tell you what I think are like the better sets for the prices. Maybe I like Brilliant Stars. I mean, I think like Brilliant Stars ETBs are like about the price that they were like for as they've been the entire time. Like, but maybe that's because there's way too much of that printed and people are like super tired of Charizards and maybe in the future they won't want Charizards and just because that set has some Charizards, like, you know, or maybe it's just that that set came after like a lot of sets. There were too many sets. People kind of were still really hyped on like Evolving Skies and like the Umbreon and like what that was doing at the time. People were disappointed at like the prices that the Charizards was going for. There was a lot of the product printed because they thought it would be popular, and people were really burned out on Charizards. I think there's a lot. I think there's a sentiment. There could be a trend that like Charizards right now people are more burnt out on. So maybe Charizards are going to be a little undervalued in that type of environment, where before they were maybe a little overvalued. That's how an investor, like a value investor, thinks about markets. But it is so speculative, and I to call any of it an investment would make me anxious. All right, I'm going to do just a couple more questions. There are big time buyers supposedly cutting sheets and grading through CGC. Like, yeah, I mean, I listen. I have no idea. I can comment on it though. Pokebarn. I know that other guy's asking about it. That like, would that matter to me? I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think about it. I don't know. Does it matter to you guys? Does that make it? Should that make it less valuable because it was hand cut to sort of like be perfect now? How much would that bother you? Versus sort of the luck of like it coming out of pack that fresh, first pulling it. I mean, certainly for anyone who's investing in this stuff, like it's going to be negative because it's like, well, that's unfair. Now there's going to be like, people are going to be getting more high graded cards, and that's going to lower the value of mine, or it's unfair that they're able to make money off of this. They're lying or cheating people. Like I get that, and I get that frustration. You know, they are real cards. I don't know. I guess I would say I haven't thought at all about this. This is just like my live reaction. I guess I would say it feels shitty and icky, but I'd have to explore more why it does for me. And I prefer the purity of just like not doing stuff like that, and the purity of just like pulling stuff from packs and the gamble of it that it's really hard to find stuff in good condition. And if there's some sort of like hiding of the fact that they're doing that intentionally because people would pay less, that's sketchy potentially. And if that's what's going on and why people are concerned or upset about it, like I can definitely understand where that thought process is going. Um, I think at least ideally they would say on the CGC card, like this was, not from a pack, or this was not, original, this was from an uncut sheet or something like that. I mean, maybe those would be really rare because there aren't that many of those uncut sheets, and so there'd be collectors for those people who like uncut sheets collecting like their favorite card in high condition from uncut sheets. I mean, for those who don't know, like uncut sheets can get damaged really easily. Like finding like mint now with more modern stuff and middle era stuff, I don't know what they're doing, if they're doing it with vintage or modern guys. Like if they're doing it with like modern stuff, I don't even know, or like middle era. So like I have no idea how much. I'm so not an expert on any of that stuff. It's like asking someone who has literally no clue. Just because he's a guy on a YouTube channel, I have no idea. All right, a couple more here. Let's see. 20 years from today, are the kids being born today into a world of increasingly captive computers to play with? Many of them may not play or collect cardboard, same way most of you don't stamps. Absolutely. For sure, for sure. I think that it was also the whole NFT thing, right? It's like, well, people still are gonna like cards, but they're gonna want to collect like digital cards. instead of physical cards or something like that, or some combination. It's part of why all this is so speculative. It's part of why investing in Pokemon and any sort of collectible, particularly when it's really hot and when people feel really good about it, like that's the time to be like, whoa, like people are way too positive about this stuff. And I would say there's all sorts of parts of this market and people within this market that are way too bullish, in my view, continuously and have been for years, right? And they'll only stop once they get like horrendously burned, which eventually will happen. But um, that doesn't mean though that like there isn't some middle ground where it's like, okay, but there are also a lot of examples where we have things that have been collectible for many, many years, generations, decades and decades and decades. Cards have been around now, cigarette cards, which are sort of the first ever collectible cards. I'm trying to remember the date, 1850s, 1860s. I forget when the first one was, but it's people have collected cards and been somewhat interested in cards for like 150 years now across, and if anything, you could argue that the digital age and social media allows for things to have more of a monopoly on our attention and to get to people, even to create a market that's even more fun and efficient and effective with all of this stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I do think the combining of the physical and the digital is something that these companies will like look into heavily, whether that's with some sort of NFT, blockchain technology, or non blockchain. Um, we'll see. Had a lot of those conversations on this channel, like during the NFT boom. um, Flip Flap, did you have some questions about One Piece? Oh, you're good. Feel free to hijack the chat. You're all good. um, Nostalgia said people are just crazy. They think they know you like your mother from watching you on YouTube. Yeah, exactly. This guy is like this way, and and they have such strong opinions. Ugh. The overly positive ones make me uncomfortable too. Don't get me wrong. So, but I guess I honestly I do. I guess if I had to choose, I choose the putting me on a pedestal than the than the Jake's a dirty scammer and he's horrible. He's way worse than everyone. These are the heroes of the hobby. These are the villains of the hobby. Like any sort of that stuff is pretty rough, pretty unfortunate. Instead of like, we all have our quirks, we all have our positives and negatives. Let's try to enjoy ourselves for everyone. Can you expand on the idea of speccing on cards specifically? Like if you want to buy Disney collectibles, the reason you go towards cards is familiarity. Yeah. So with something like that, I'm looking for first appearances. I'm looking for something that I think looks good. I'm looking for something that I think is rare, right? I'm looking, let's see what else you're asking here. Like if you want to buy a Disney collectible, is there a reason? I'd go towards cards. So I'm a card collector and specker. I like I know cards. I know cards extremely well at this point, and I know, there's way more than I can learn, blah, 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 blah. Like I'm just getting started in this. I'm going to be hopefully way more knowledgeable in 20, 30 years if I'm still doing this, whatever. But, I've done deep dives on tried to understand and see and find as much as I can from all of these different eras. When I did AP sports cards was my strategy was like, I'm going to identify what I think are the biggest IPs in the world, and I'm going to see what cards are out there for them, and I'm going to create lists of all the different sets, and then I'm going to explore them. I'm going to see what I think are the best, and then I'm going to see how much of that inventory is out there by trying to track it down and for months, and then I'm going to look for like the sealed stuff, the stuff that's in high condition. I'm going to see how difficult it is to grade. I'm going to test it out. Like you're going to like all of that stuff is that's all that sort of like you're interrogating all of sort of the value, right, of what is the value of this, and then you're comparing it to other things, right? And ultimately you're never going to escape the, well, maybe just like no one will ever care about Disney cards. And people will still care about these other cards, but just not these at all. Maybe, like absolutely, that could certainly be possible. You have to put that in. I don't know how to quantify that exactly, but I do think that like with the grading card companies, as people collect longer and longer, if they collect and the hobbies stay engaged, the more people over time get funneled into these other things. And, like my Disney speculations have gone really well. Like I've made, while Pokemon was booming, I spec'd a lot on Disney. And then, and maybe I'm part of a lot of that's luck because of Lorcana, right? And maybe the money that I made off all my Disney stuff, I wouldn't have made if it hadn't been for Lorcana. I won't know that. But the way that I think about this stuff is that it was prepped for a Lorcana. Like there is a like when you buy things that are really low value and you hold them for a really long time, like they could boom at any point. Like they could stay stagnant for 20 years and then 150x and you could make a ton of money, and it's even a good investment after all of that time waiting, right? Now, like with Disney, I only had to wait like a year and a half, whatever. We're in sort of this crazy card boom right now. Who knows how long it's gonna, continue to last. Hopefully it mellows out, sustains itself, etc. But that's my attitude on these things. And I'm a collector, so I like them. I see the value. I think some of these items, when I buy them, I'm like, I get that feeling. That's the feeling I had in Pokemon. That feeling of like, how is this so cheap? This is so fun. This is so enjoyable. And I, as a random dude, could own like who is not that wealthy, and again, wealth is all relative, but it's not like I have like $100 million or something like that. And so many people have many people have $100 million or $1 billion or whatever. Like people with just like $1 million or $500,000 or even like $200,000 could buy out like 15% of this vintage market, like graded market. How is that for an IP that's this big, that's that important, right? Now, how much of it was luck? How much of it was me identifying that? Obviously, I think it's reasonable to say, quite a bit of both, whatever. But that's the way I think about it. I think like and then if I have that feeling, right, I use myself as a like, well, I like what? Like, how is this so cheap? That's a good feeling. Now, just because you feel that way doesn't mean that anyone else will ever feel that way. So if your tastes are very off the beaten tracks or you're really into things that very few people are, like you have to back it up with numbers and data. So one thing I did was like I looked up what's the biggest IP in the world. Oh, biggest IP in the world is Pokemon. Oh, there's a history of 30-year-olds wanting to have what they had when they were 10. This is like there are books written about this, like collectible patterns, right? Oh, like this just doesn't make sense. Oh, everyone I knew was obsessed with these cards. Like when I talk about these cards even now, like when I would show them to like a friend, like people like were like, "Oh, I love Pokemon." Like the amount of positive response to it, the fact that how much money was still in it, right? Those are the things I look for. And that's what I'm looking for in these Disney cards or Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, and then so that's a lot of the demand side. And then the rarity side is the supply side is that sort of rarity, both condition rarity and then absolute rarity, right? Things you and I both know very well. For those who are new, condition rarity being how difficult is this card to grade in high grade, absolute rarity, how many of this cards exist or, were printed, etc. One Piece convos. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on in One Piece too much, but I know there's a lot of people who are interested in it, who are buying, collecting, investing, speculating. It's very hot right now. I don't know enough about it really to give my opinion on do I think it's too hot or whatever. I heard the stock market. Yes, the stock market and Berkshire and Hathaway in particular, ooh, that's a cheap shot, has been leading the way. So anyway, whatever. It's great. Jake is ditzing himself. I think I'm pretty sure I'm on record for saying that Dark Discipline is just like the worst set ever printed. I hate that set. I remember when that Charizard came out and it was selling for a lot, and I made a video on this channel, and I was just like, guys, they're gonna make a Rainbow Rare version. They're gonna make all sorts of versions of that card. This card's gonna be like a $40 card, $50 card, and now it's like a $20 card. At that point, it was like 250 bucks. Yeah, because it was like the big hit of the era. It's the same lesson over and over again. The investing buying part is the easy part. Hard part is getting your money back selling. Well, definitely with the illiquidity of this stuff, if you don't have an operation of some sort, particularly if you're buying a lot, in quantity, it can definitely be difficult to sell, to know how to sell, to know where to sell. If you're selling on eBay, factoring in the fees, etc. Show fees. Generally, there's lots of fees in selling. It's confusing when the cards, yeah, we're never meant to be, but I don't know how I feel. Yeah, I'd have to like think about it more. That was just like my quick hit responses. I don't know. I think if they like labeled it like as I'm thinking, I think if they labeled it, I would actually think like that's fine, kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't want any of it. Maybe it's all scamming. Maybe it's fraud to do it at all. Maybe I really don't know. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting topic. I mean, it's fraud if you are telling people that they're not from that, right? Like if you are intentionally cutting them and you are telling people that these are from bags, that is fraud. That would be the definition of fraud. I have not been following this. I'll have to take a look because it could be something I would enjoy. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. Good to see your name. So it really depends. So like if you have like alt arts and more expensive cards that tend to move well and that these stores tend to look for, you can actually get like 80% from stores. 75, 70, 80 will definitely be like the highest you'll probably ever see, but you can get like pretty high percentages, particularly if they don't have a lot of that and they're moving a lot of it. They'll definitely buy that from you at that. But when you're talking about like your mass quantity Vs, your random rainbow rares, gold cards, your things that are particularly the non like that are not popular Pokemon versions of those you're exactly right. Those are looking at probably 40%, 40, 50%, 60% would be amazing. No one's going to give you that on Vs that I know of. Unless that's like a big part of their business model. Like I know that there's some people who mass buy that type of stuff to like grade and then sell them. In my business, I work with a number of those people, and I have people, anything that it's not worth my time to sell, I have an outlet, and they have a business model where they're built to sort of sell, to optimize that. When I talk about like strategic partners in the business space, like our businesses are optimized in a certain way to sell or move or hunt something. And it can be really valuable to strategically partner with people who are optimized in a different way. But yeah, I for sure agree with you, the boring channel, that like, if you have never sold, I try to buy from these, people like that. And I might offer 75%, I've offered 80%, a few times on certain items. I just offered 80% on a very massive deal. I think I offered really strong, but the guy's super hesitant because he wants full max value, and he doesn't understand how long and difficult it would be to sell on eBay. And after the fees, you're probably netting maybe 85%, 84%. after that, I'm offering you 80% to avoid all that work. It's just it's an obvious thing that he should do it immediately and just move on. But people have emotional attachments, and they don't want to get duped. Also, they don't want to get taken advantage of. And if they don't know you, I get all of that. Um, it's not nice to hate on people. I'm not saying you're doing this at all, but in general, and I can do this too. It's not nice to hate on people who just aren't knowledgeable, and so they do things like that. It certainly, for people who are more experienced, it's frustrating to work with and deal with people like that, because you're trying to help them, and give them good advice, and they won't listen. But it's from their perspective, it's understandable, and we all started there. Okay, appreciate the super chat. Okay. I think I have to CGC is definitely not mentioning it, and the people involved seem to be keeping. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'll look more into it. Um, I don't know if I'll have a strong take Pokebarn one way or another, but sounds like you and I have maybe a similar. We're not sure exactly how to think about a take. I don't know. I'll take a look. Kryptonite's card says, "Heard of Palworld?" I have this week. Palworld to the moon. Palworld cards. That's what I would invest all my money in, Dan, once those come out. In fact, I would invest all my money in starting that company. I have heard of Palworld. I have not played it yet. I have a Mac. I would have already tried it if I could on my Mac easily, and instead of having to download all the stuff I need to play PC games on my Mac. I just don't feel like it. If Powder's out there, I'm open to a partner. Nice. I'll never use CGC, especially when the sell price between CGC and PSA. Yeah, I think it just, for me as a business, like as a collector, I generally am PSA and just have always been, because that's just what I like to collect. It's what I've always collected. But for CGC, I've graded a bit with CGC, but for my business, mostly PSA has made sense, believe it or not. For other businesses, they only grade with CGC because they're doing like really low end stuff. Maybe it's they can get a bunch of like CGC 9.5s and CGC 10s, like non-pristine 10s, a lot easier than PSA 10s theoretically, and those move a lot better on the low end. For streamers, for mystery boxes, things like mystery boxes. So anyway, everyone's different, right, Jeff? And everyone's working on a different thing. But I think that that for a lot of things, if you think that it can get a PSA 10, certainly for high dollar things, it's worth it to send to PSA, or potentially Beckett for the black label, right? Do I have a Discord? So I have a paid Discord. I guess we're finishing up now. Dan could probably post it again. It's Dan and I, Catch 'em All Collectibles. It's a Patreon where you pay $10 a month. Right? $10 a month? God, I don't even remember. I think it's $10 a month. Is it 10? $10 a month. And you get a bunch of there's, I don't know how many hours of videos of us together doing analysis, we put together presentations every month and we record them for people that are more in depth. It's for people who want like an additional more of us for whatever reason, and want sort of an additional, there's a lot of big resellers and sellers in there, a lot of big collectors. There's actually we have some cool people who are like former WotC employee, there's some neat people in there. What I would say though is I'm in free Discords, and I don't hang out in any. I barely even hang out in our Discord. Dan's in there a lot. I'm in there for my weekly office hours, which is I'm in there every hour, every week for an hour, just engaging with people. And I do read. I'm actually not much of a. I'm a lurker by nature, so I do lurk a lot. I just don't say a lot unless I'm in the office hours, but. So you can you can interact with us more there in Discord, where we answer lots of questions. There's lots and lots of spreadsheets and lots of trackers, and there's all sorts of tools for resellers and things that may be valuable. If you sign up once, you can sort of download it all if you want. Then if it's just valuable for $10, you can do that and then leave. I don't, whatever. Whatever people want to do is cool with me. Um, but yeah, if you want to just be friends and hang out, do not join the Discord. Do not pay. Come to Collecticons, come hang out. I'm not saying that's what you want, but um, go to the free Discord. Squeaks has a great Discord. Um, Professor Oak's Discord, I assume, is still going strong, and there's a lot of people I really like in that Discord, and I really like Professor Oak and DeGreen Shiz. They have a great podcast, Slab Podcast. There's a lot of nice people around everywhere. You don't need to pay. Don't pay for, in my view, try not to pay for access and relationships. If you want to support, if you want to, I don't know. Those are my feelings. So anyway, appreciate all of you. It was fun being back. Hopefully this was enjoyable for people. And yeah, we'll see. I probably will end up doing this again soon, I'm sure. um, so I'll talk to a bunch of you guys again soon, and I'll see some of you in the Discord, and some of you on the next live. All right, take care, everyone. Bye bye.